When retail is totally wiped out, institutions take control, they buy your alts for pennies on the dollar, and then we go up.
We believe we're in the late stages of despair, where sentiment has hit rock bottom, price have plummeted, investors are scared.
Will Bitcoin one day trade above its current 110K all-time high? Bitcoin is going up. Altcoins are going to go up even more. However, if Bitcoin is going down in a downtrend, altcoins are going to get murdered.
Things are tough, we know it, but there is a bright side, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We're certain of it, and we'd like to talk about why. Our objective today, firmly assessing why markets are behaving the way they are right now, and talk about our future outlook. Trump wants rates to come down so that the government can refinance US debt at lower rates. This will leave a huge mark on his legacy. What would have been the point of setting up the DOGE, aka Department of Government Efficiency, if we were just going to pay trillions more in interest on debt, right? It's not like the DOGE is saving trillions or anywhere close to that. So Trump will be a net negative for the federal budget, and his legacy will be completely tarnished. Unless, of course, if he can do something about that interest rate. Trump already nicely asked the Fed to bring rates down. The Fed refused to do so, and Trump can't force them to do what he wants. The Fed isn't subject to his control. So what does the Fed want, ultimately? They printed money into oblivion during the pandemic, and they want to do everything in their power to keep inflation low. That's Jerome Powell's legacy that's coming into play. He doesn't want to be remembered as the worst head of the Fed in modern history.
The Fed wants to keep interest rates high to keep spending low and thereby keep inflation low. If people don't have the money to spend, prices can't go up with the same momentum. When interest rates are high, companies cannot expand as quickly because the cost to borrow money to finance that growth is too high. So people lose their jobs. Aggregate spending goes down. And that's why the two pieces of data the Fed relies on most are 1, inflation, 2, unemployment. So when inflation goes down and unemployment goes up, for the Fed, the risk of lowering rates goes down. What the Fed wants is less inflation. And that's why it's holding back on lowering those rates. So why are we telling you all of this? Because even though Trump cannot force the Fed to do what he wants directly, he definitely can do it indirectly, because he can impact inflation and unemployment. And that's exactly what he's doing. The US Strategic Bitcoin Reserve has been confirmed. In between his little war, Trump did it. He actually kept his promise. The US Bitcoin Reserve has been confirmed, and that's exactly what it is, a Bitcoin reserve. Not a reserve of cryptocurrencies in general, just Bitcoin. So far, the plan stipulates keeping the 200,000 Bitcoin that the US already has. 200,000 Bitcoin, if it were to be sold, it would have been a lot of sell pressure. It's not going to be, because they intend to keep it. Potentially want to add more to that reserve through budget neutral strategies. That means if they can find ways to buy Bitcoin without spending more, they'll do it. Or if they seize more Bitcoin, they won't sell it. Elon's work in Doge could be a massive driver towards that as well. Now, all other cryptos were lumped together into a digital asset stockpile. This means that any amount of crypto the US already has or ends up owning in the future through seizing, again, it will not be sold. They will be added to the stockpile. Now, take a step back and think about this for a moment. Like, for all of you who are here since a year or so, would we even have dreamt of something like this? Never, right? But we're looking at the short-term price action and we don't care. We should care. The US also says that it's willing to buy more of it. And it's hard to imagine anything more exciting for crypto happening because the US is the greatest influencer of the world. We're talking about countries here. If US government decides to hold Bitcoin and crypto and not to sell it, what do you think the other governments are going to do?
We believe we're in the late stages of despair, which you can see on this chart. This is a phase where sentiment has hit rock bottom, prices have plummeted, and investors are scared. And many are questioning the future of digital assets. We've seen this reflected in the prolonged downward trends, high volatility, and a big wave of capitulation from even the most, the biggest holders. But here's the key. Despair often signals a turning point. Historically, these moments of extreme pessimism have preceded some of the market's most remarkable recoveries.
Most probable scenario, because there are several. The most probable at this point says that this next month or two is the accumulation phase. It's gonna get bloody, but if you've planned it accordingly, you should be fine. We're probably gonna be buying at very cheap prices. I mean, when it's Black Friday, people buy because it's cheap, right? But when it comes to investment, when it's cheap, people don't want it anymore. They want it only when it's super high. It might be a final chance to pick up your favorite stuff before the massive run up, but don't underestimate the potential pain that could be ongoing. And a good indicator for you is where Bitcoin will be, right? I wouldn't jump into alts before Bitcoin actually shows a reversal. Right, but Trump is not a terrorist, right? He's playing his way of making a deal because he sees the light at the end of the tunnel. He doesn't want a recession. The typical good scenario is to stick to your high conviction bets, de-risk, right? In these kind of situations where there's a lot of uncertainty, de-risk, stick together, stick with us, use your analysts, run off your ideas. Don't get emotional whenever you make a decision, but be very intentional about it, right? And then we'll realize the opportunity of a lifetime, because yes, institutions are out for your crypto, they're out for your Bitcoin. Keep in mind that all of this that we're doing here, our goal is to help you take advantage of this gonna be $100 trillion opportunity, because that's what's gonna unfold for us in the next 5 years. We will see through Trump's entire presidency and celebrate that mark together. And mark my words, the prices at which cryptos will trade and Bitcoin will trade at the end of presidency of Trump will be higher than at the beginning. If he has a move to make, obviously he'll make it at the beginning. Who's gonna remember the beginning? Everyone remember the end.